Hello and good morning. My name is Steve Pugh and this is the bank holiday edition, at least in the UK, of the, I was going to say the Growth Strategy Roadmap live stream and Q&A kind of session, but I must admit with the launch of the Roadmap MBA, that's kind of trumped it now. So what is it? So basically the Roadmap MBA is a real world business course that I've been working on for years now. And what we're really trying to do is make business education accessible. So it's to help people who work in their business or careers. And actually, truth be told, there's a lot of stuff that people aren't necessarily taught how to do. Drive a sales pipeline, market a company, develop a strategy, that kind of thing. So what the Roadmap MBA does in the form of a 216-page kind of textbook, we have the website and there's 107 videos. We have live stream Q&As, and as of Tuesday, the kind of classroom sessions start where we're going to run through basically the whole course, the different modules. There's 14 different modules and we go through all the different information, but it's really there to help real people in their business or career teach real world stuff that actually you can implement almost straight away. So I've made the commitment to do the live streams every Friday, even though it's a bank holiday in the UK. I have customers in Nigeria, in the US, in Latvia, in Amsterdam, that for them it's not a bank holiday. So for me, again, this is my business, so I thought, why not? I'll kind of chip in. It is Friday the 2nd of April. It is 9:01 now, so welcome if you're here to join. If you make any comments on any of the platforms, hopefully it should pop up on this side of the screen. But I do respect most people will be off work today, so that's cool. So in terms of today, I've kind of covered obviously myself and a little bit about the course. And what I tend to do is answer questions. Hi Simon, as always, is answer questions that people have sent in during the week, which will genuinely help them in their own kind of endeavors. The three I'm going to cover today, the first is actually pricing structures for small businesses. This is something that a lot of people struggle with because it's very difficult to get right, and especially if you're in your first kind of year, 2 years of running. Often knowing how to charge and who to charge and different structures and what other companies do is something I'm going to cover. Another one which I think is almost especially relevant and hit me a bit this week was it's the whole imposter syndrome and worrying that you're not good enough, and actually, making sure that, we acknowledge it's something that we all kind of face. I think my focus point's gone. There we go. My camera seems to be playing up. I apologize. There we go. It's the wonders of live kind of broadcast. At least hopefully now I'm in focus. So I'm going to talk on imposter syndrome and just, from my point of view, because I'm, not immune to it either. And then last but not least, I'm going to jump onto slide decks and pitching your business. And I'm going to break this down into two separate levels. One is actually to do with fundraising and the things to do and consider. And the second for me is actually to do with sales. I think there's a different approach to both of them. So what I wanted to do is kind of cover, both within the kind of talk. Thanks, Simon. I don't know why it just lost focus, but hopefully I'm back in cover now. Cool, so I'm going to jump straight onto the pricing structures. So this is actually something which came up from 3 different people in the past week. I won't mention who they are, but it's that kind of thing, that it's a common problem. And for me, there are different ways to kind of look at how you price your product. And the first one, when you're looking at pricing, what I would recommend to everyone is that when you first start out, you often end up just winging it. So every time an inquiry comes in, you kind of just off the top of your head think of it. So actually, when you start up, wing it, which basically just means make it up. You don't want to do that. So yes, it's fine when the first few jobs come in and you might go in and assess what you think it is you need to do. But actually that gets very tiresome. And then as you get busier and your workload kind of ramps up, it gets harder and harder to do because it takes, cognizant effort every time to think of all the variables and, that kind of thing. So one of the really big things that a lot of bigger companies do is they have a pricing framework or a structure, which you pre-agree, you set up so that then when you go and execute, or you have your team execute your sales strategy, Basically, they get it right every time, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do in this instance, the question came in to do with two kind of freelancers. So I'm going to split it down. And in this example, I'm going to go, so this is an example of a painter and decorator type person. So someone that has a trade. So I'm going to put trade person. And for them, there's two different angles to have to consider. One is the residential market and the other one is the commercial market. And for me, they should have a different approach. Residential and commercial. So for traditional consumers, which would be you or me at home, when we buy stuff and we get things to kind of, we hire people in to be our plumber or tile a bathroom or plaster a wall or whichever, this is often what we look at. And the thing that we always look for is trust. And that almost is the main thing which, comes from recommendations. The more you can kind of get yourself out there and promote yourself on social media, but actually get recommendations from other people is the best way to drive new business. But in terms of actually pricing the job, a pounds per hour rate is probably most appropriate for residential kind of people. It's slightly different in the commercial world. So if you could still be a tradesperson, but you're doing work in a business context, yes, you would still have a pounds per hour rate, but arguably I would probably make it 30% higher than the residential one. But the other thing to really consider here is actually to really look at the value that you bring, the time that you save them, which allows that person to concentrate on other things. And the reason why this is really important is that at home, often the person could do the job themselves, but they won't do it as well, but they would probably just take more time over it. Often in a business context, there's often a time critical element, which, someone would really benefit from having this thing done quickly, that actually that's where I think you can justify the kind of, the value that you bring, which really justifies the uplift. But the other thing as well is that I actually wouldn't cost jobs in number of hours. So for instance, I would not quote that it'll take you 8 hours to do the job, because then what the person on the other end, the buyer, can do is, almost think through, okay, well, it's 8 hours. How long do I think it'll take? Am I happy with the price? And they work out the hourly rate, and you go into really fine detail. I personally wouldn't do that in a commercial context. What I would do is just give them a price. So it could be £160. And then it's just down to the person to think, yes, that price is fine, go ahead. And then even if you do it in 1 hour, they've still got the problem solved. And that could be very different to the residential market. But the other thing which I thought I'd mention as well is that people often find themselves getting really busy. And actually the challenge you often have is that you only have a certain number of hours per week that you want to work. And it's how do you almost balance that across what you're doing. So I again would charge, say, a 30% uplift for evenings and weekends. Which again helps you pay more wages, but then likewise, if the person wants it doing quickly, they can pay more, but then obviously it impacts on your personal time, which I think is really important. But the other thing, which I'm going to flip the screen, is that one of the things that I think all businesses should do, and this is true for bigger B2B businesses and kind of smaller guys as well, is that you have, so how busy you are. So from 0 to 100. And then you would have price. Is that when you launch your business and your product or your service, the first thing you want to do if you've got no work is get case studies, get proof of concept, get work in and kind of make that work. So you probably start here, which is great. And the hope is that by the time you get to say being 50% full in your time, you've hopefully covered all your costs. And actually that's where a lot of lifestyle businesses kind of stop, where they choose to get to a certain point, they get the lifestyle that they want, etc. But then actually it almost becomes exponentially more effort to do more work as you grow. So this is where, in my belief, that your pricing structure should do that. So in the painter decorator example, it could be that your average rate is £20 per hour until you're 50% busy. But then as you get busier, that might go to 30. And then actually there'll be a point where you're sold out 5 days a week, and you want to build a sustainable long-term business. What you can then do is either just build up a bigger pipeline of jobs, so you book people in to do their job in 2 months' time, etc., and you do it at the low rate. Or if they're urgent to have it done, that's where you could arguably charge, say, £40 an hour, which means that you are getting a much bigger reward for your time based on, you're already at capacity, you're busy, and you have to kind of look after yourself as well. And it's the incentive to then do the extra work to get the reward for it. And then just from a sheer kind of business point of view, I'm going to say that if you start at £20 an hour as your average rate and you have costs, I'm going to keep it simple and say 10. Here you're making on average £10 net profit per hour. Then as you grow and you go up to 30, suddenly you've doubled your net profit. And again, you're making 3 times the net profit for marginally not a huge amount of extra work. And this is where you can actually, from a business point of view, and it's true for a business of any size, you do the first bit to cover your costs, cover your overhead, to make sure that you stay in business, you can pay all your staff's wages and you operate. But then actually, as you get busier or the capacity in your machine shop is getting tight, you can put the price up. And actually you make a bulk of your profit here. What you've found is that you've found the balance between running a lean, sustainable business, which customers are happy to pay for, and you still have the potential to make a lot more profit. And it's all through having your kind of pre-agreed pricing structure. So again, if you are the freelancer, painter and decorator, but this will also be true for people that are personal trainers, etc. It's having your hourly rate, which could be £25 an hour. And actually the one big thing on that, and almost deciding your rate, so this came up, from a personal trainer, and what they were looking at is that do they charge £12 an hour, £16 an hour, £25 an hour, and actually where do they fit? So the options were 12, 16, 25, and arguably £35 an hour. So this was a discussion, and this was, say, for a 45-minute session. So the point I made to them was actually, if someone books in for a 45-minute session, they'll arrive early, you'll have a bit of conversation, you'll have the session, and then they'll leave. So actually, it's not 45 minutes, it's an hour. And then from a business point of view, maybe you have the hire of premises, you have staff costs, you have whatever. So you must always keep that in mind. So I'm going to say UK national minimum wage is give or take £9 at the moment. So I'm going to say £9 for overheads. Wait, in these examples, what's that going to be? So that's going to be £3, that's profit. £3, what's that, 7? Oh God, it's a bank holiday. 14, and then 25, 26. But the point is that when it's Friday morning, I should be on holiday, I need a rest. But the point is then when you're looking at how much do you pay and how much do you charge people, if you then look at the demographic of who are the average people who actually hire personal trainers, they're probably going to be fairly well off people with a good salary, that they have disposable income. But there's also the dynamic of actually, if you go too cheap, people might perceive that the quality isn't there. So therefore, when you look at this, but also you look at the actual net profit at the end of each of the options, I would be going here and then actually, price it and test the market. Often people price themselves too cheap, which actually can have a negative long-term impact on their business, which is really important. So yeah, this question came in from a few different people, but the flip side is one of the examples I was also given was a guy to come in and do some computer network repair for a residential property. And the customer, the person who's on the course, went out and actually got a quote, and the quote that came back was something like 400 euros. They then spoke to a friend and said, actually, look, I've got this problem, how do I fix it? And their friend basically said, look, the equipment to do the actual fix is probably 60 euros. So with labour, you could probably justify 160 euros to come out, do the job, etc. But what that then did in the mind of the buyer, he felt like he was getting ripped off because actually there wasn't a tangible distinction between value and what he could do himself versus what he was being charged. So therefore, it didn't build trust. So he's never going to recommend that tradesman as well. But yeah, for the business itself, he might have thought it might be true that he was at capacity, he didn't really want to do the job. So sometimes people put in a high price because they don't want to do it. That could be what's true here. But then actually, if you're looking at the long-term viability of your business, if you go that approach and you try and rip people off, what will happen is that people will lose trust in you and your business will die in the long term. I wouldn't recommend you do that. So even if you think that you could get away with charging 400 euros for something which has a unit cost to you for 60, and it's marginal time, there's that balance on trust that if someone was to find out your real costs, etc., would you, is it the right way that you want to do business? That's up to you. But it was something that I wanted to kind of comment on. So hopefully that was useful. And to the people that raised these questions, if you've got any more, please feel free to send them in. Okay, I'm just going to get a drink of water. So it's now 9:17. The next one I'm going to talk on, and actually there's nothing to go on the board. This is more just something that I'd been feeling that I'm sure, to be honest, a lot of other people do as well. And actually I had a really interesting chat with an entrepreneur based out of Eastern Europe yesterday. And I think it's really funny that people that own a business or even run a business, people had said to me in the past, it was almost some advice, I guess, saying that it can be a really lonely place to be the MD or whoever of a business, because in some ways everyone looks to you for the answers to solve all the problems, when actually you're a person too, if that makes sense. And actually it was just, especially for entrepreneurs, consultants, freelancers, etc., it can also feel like an especially lonely place because you have all these problems. You don't necessarily have the workplace, other people to kind of bounce stuff off and get their ideas and that kind of thing. And then likewise, there's always the balance as well on the perception that other people are doing really well and you're not, and is it just you? And that can build a lot of pressure. And it's just, it can be a really difficult thing. So I thought I'd just, touch on it for a few minutes. That I must admit, I hope I'm quite good at this. I understand how to do business and how to write strategies and do the whole thing. But I must admit, in the first kind of 6 months of me setting up, there was still a lot of kind of finding my feet, finding my market, refining my approach, going out and speaking to people. And the one thing which really kind of worked, and it was when things really started to take off, was that I talk about something called lead actions quite a lot, which is it's knowing the important things to your business to achieve your goal, and then actually tracking them and doing them and just to start the activity. And for me, actually, it was when I started to properly do my sales approaches and just approach people to say hello and start the conversation. And this was to do with the consultancy. I think there was a time lag of maybe about a month from when I was starting to do it, and then you'd have meetings, and then when it started to actually kind of roll through to people say, yes, we want to hire you, and how it kind of goes forward. But actually, there was a point where you go through that process and you obviously do everything you can to get out there and start earning money so that you can start to build your business kind of thing. But I still found it kind of tough. The next year, luckily, touch some wood, things went really well, and actually working with multiple different customers in multiple different industries. I'm really just trying to add as much value as you can. But in terms of the mental kind of pressure side to it, I still think even now that I always want to make sure I deliver value to customers and do the best job I possibly can, because that's just me. But that still gets to me, and that's one of the, I guess it would probably fall under kind of anxiety, but it does, happens to me, happens to a lot of people. And then, likewise, one of the other things that people also put a lot of pressure on themselves, including me, on you want to progress quicker or at a certain rate, that actually, you might feel that your business isn't going as fast as you want it to, and you can put a lot of pressure kind of on yourself doing that. And again, I'd fall under that trap quite a lot. And the one thing when I was looking at and doing my research on this kind of topic is that try, if you can, for one, not to be too hard on yourself. But actually, if you always think about what advice would you give your best friend. So imagine that your best friend is doing what you're doing, trying to start their own business or whichever, and really trying to make it work. We're often, 10 times more critical to ourselves than we would ever be to other people. And it's just that kind of thing of almost, give yourself a break in some ways. And I'm guilty of this as well. And it's almost where, it's a long journey that we're all on. I always joke with the Roadmap MBA that I'm now 8 weeks into a 10-year kind of journey, and I'm doing my best and I'm doing all the right things and hopefully just trying to get it in front of people. And even coming in on Fridays and a bank holiday weekend to do a live stream is one of my lead actions. It's just to keep the momentum going. And then on that point is that I made the decision when I started my own business was that even if it failed, if I knew I'd done everything I felt I could to make it work, I could live with that. What I didn't want to do was start my own business, do my own thing, kind of half-arse it or not really put the effort in. And then if it doesn't work out, regret it for the rest of my life. So that was, one of those things. But again, I'd love to hear your messages, either personal DM or otherwise, just on how you kind of find stuff. But it was just that, as part of we're starting to build a really good community with the Roadmap MBA now. There's a lot of people on the same journey. A lot of people actually with very similar problems where they're looking to first start to articulate their message and get their websites up and start the whole process. And then, part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this, and again in the kind of classroom sessions, I'll probably go into more detail, is just to be, for people to feel that they can be open and honest about their own journey, and I'll do it myself, that, nobody's perfect. We all kind of do our best. And, in time, there are lots and lots of people out there that will happily help you if they can. And it's, we're all kind of on this journey together. So it was just, I wanted to do a few minutes on that, just to kind of, be honest about my own kind of journey. And yeah, if you've got any questions, kind of, please feel free to reach out. Although the one thing that is quite nice being Friday morning 9:22 is that I know I've got the rest of the day to myself. Often, yeah, I'm busy, I kind of put my consultancy work on hold to do all my live streams and stuff, and then I know it's built it up in the background. So often when I'm talking about mental pressures and stuff, and thank you, Simon, for the comment. But it's true, and that kind of proves the point, is that I often find, and Simon's a great example, comments every week, is that helping other people helps you process your own stuff. So often what I try and do is take my own advice. So I always think, what would I tell Simon or someone else? I'm really trying to help other people, but actually I'm still guilty of it as well. And it's just to kind of talk about it. But no, Simon, I always appreciate the support. Okay. And last but not least, I've already turned it over, which is good. I can tell, I must admit, I was desperate for a holiday, but things happened and my customers needed me, but I think I'm going to take the rest of the weekend off. My brain is a bit frazzled, but anyway, it is what it is. So what I'm going to do is talk about slide decks, presentation decks, and pitching. So slide decks is probably the American term for what we just call PowerPoint presentations. And, for me, this falls into two main areas. There's two sides to it. And again, I almost have two different types of audience. So I'm going to bring this down. So on two different ways, you have, actually, I'm going to go. So fundraising, and this is people with startups that are basically, they want money from someone else for something. And the other one is to do with sales. So I'm actually going to do the sales one first, because that is most common to most people most of the time. And actually, yeah, I had a really interesting conversation with a company yesterday, I think it was yesterday, on this very topic. And what's really interesting is that you have, I'm going to switch pens. You have all the normal stuff that you would normally talk about. Who we are, what we do, how it works, what the products are. People often go into far too much detail. For me, a presentation is there to plant the seed, set the dream, and then you build on it afterwards. And often people brain dump too much stuff straight away. But the big thing that I really kind of, believe in is that it's to start with one seed that you plant in the customer's mind to set their mindset on what it is you're trying to do. Then as you progress down, you start with one core idea, which at the start of the presentation just plants the seed of what you're going to talk about, what your product is, what you do, and then how you do it, and more of the complexity follows afterwards. And it's a really important thing that basically the first thing you want to talk about, you would probably have an intro slide, which just has the name, the date, what you're there to do, etc. And that's the hold-in slide before you actually start. But the first one is the problem that you solve. And then secondly, so that could be, I'm trying to think, a business owner who's not making any money. So, that's where, whatever your defined problem is, a company where their sales have dried up and they need a marketing push. It could be that the problem is someone's overweight and they're trying to get their health. Whatever the problem is, I would actually lead with that, because the idea is that acts as the first seed for what you're planting in the presentation. And then straight away, I go high level on the solution. So what you're doing is you're identifying the problem of what it is that you're going to talk about. And so that resonates with the customer. And one of the really important things here is to grab a different pen, is that I talk about it all the time. It's probably the thing that I talk about most, is to really understand the pain points of the customer. And when you understand the pain points of the customer, that is the most important thing that you want to lead with, because that is what you class as your chatter plan when you do your sales approach. But likewise, when you actually go to present to those people. What's also interesting about pain points is that, again, in the conversation that I had yesterday, it was a very high value technical product that the company sell. And what you have is that with a high value technical sell, you have multiple stakeholders. So you have MD CEO who's interested in commercial risk and profitability and the future direction of the company, all the way down to what would be a technical engineer who might be interested in, is their data correct on what they're collecting for their particular thing. Why this is important is that the chat uplines are important, because when you're trying to approach the company, you approach the CEO with saying that you have a way to reduce commercial risk and improve the market potential for his business. That's what he's interested in. So when you do your sales approach, and it's your chat upline, so it's your 1-2 line kind of approach, always think of the pain point. Then likewise, if your pain point and you're targeting a technical guy, it's funny because he's not at the point yet where he cares about commercial risk or probably even the profitability. He's just probably interested in his data correct. Is in his world, what is he interested in? And you need to know how you profile each customer at each level, so you know how to approach them. So if it was just a technical presentation, you would lead with that as the pain point. But actually, if you're presenting to a room of 25 people and 25 stakeholders, what I would do is lead with the CEO level, big grand aim for what the product or service does. And then as you go through your story, when you go into the how, this is where you'd start to do the technical explanation of your product or service, which resonates with the lower tier members of the team that you're trying to engage with. But I wouldn't, if you lead with the technical stuff, you'll lose the CEO, who's actually the decision maker. And actually, once this guy gets a feel for the overall theme of what you're going to talk about, he'll probably actually just trust his guys that the technical stuff they'll assess. But I would always start with the top with sales. So in terms of a sales presentation, what is the problem you're trying to fix? And then likewise, start with the high level solution. So for instance, are you worried about commercial risk of your product failing in market? And for a CEO, the potential that his products are failing, it upsets their customers, they lose the business, and it goes to competitors is big number one. The solution is, we have a special black box which you can fit, which solves that problem. So that's your first slide. Then you would go into your normal stuff. So then you do that, then you go into the normal stuff, and then work your way through the story. And for me, that's one of the crucial things that I'm working on a client slide deck at the moment. Start with the problem, pitch the high level idea, then go into the detail is kind of really important. In terms of fundraising, I'm going to switch pens again because I can. I'm going to go purple. Okay, so this is different, but when you're looking to raise money, this is all about your big idea. So you probably don't want it to be more than 15 slides. Because what the whole point of this is, especially if it's a pitch, it's exactly that. It's a pitch. It's not a due diligence document. So it's all about selling the big, grand idea for what you're looking to do, to get people interested, get them on the hook. And then likewise, in this example, this is the pitch. Then the due diligence and stuff will happen over time, but it's don't try and do it all up front. So the first thing for me you want to start with is your mission statement. This is also your why. So for instance, with the Roadmap MBA, our mission statement and our why is all about making business education accessible. And everything that I'm doing, from a live stream to the language we use, to the layout on the paper, to the fact that we do it on paper and online, and everything is built around making business education accessible. So that's our why. Next is about the problem. This again is the problem that you're looking to fix. Again, it could be the amount of plastic in the ocean, it could be CO2 emissions from cars, whatever your problem is that you want to fix, that's what we want to do next. And again, if you can qualify that with market size type stuff, do it. Again, this is all about selling the dream, but you want lots of nice graphics. You don't want a lot of text heavy stuff. It's all about building the dream. So you've got the problem. Next is the high level solution. You see the link there, both the same. That's again what you want to lead with. Next, it's all about the team. One of the big things that people actually look for, and actually talking to an investor yesterday, he said that there was a product that he saw which came out of the Y Combinator, which is a thing in San Francisco, which is a really high tech. It's like the Harvard Business School for tech startups. It's a really big thing. But it's, if you buy into the team and their passion and the workload and that they have a drive, it's super, super important. You do often see this, especially with engineering businesses. They often hide behind the product and that they lead with that. But actually people want to know, arguably also true in the sales context, who is the team who's actually going to be doing the work? Because that's what people buy into, arguably more than anything else. So we've got mission statement 1, problem 2, solution 3, 4 is the team, 5 is basically, it's the roadmap, it's the milestones, it's to go from where you are today, what are the stages, how long will it take, and what you need. And actually what people want, it's part of the reason why it's the name, the Roadmap MBA, but it's to give people confidence to say, look, we know what we're doing, we know how long it'll take, this is the burn rate, and actually it's that kind of process. Next one is basically, I was going to say value, but it's all about the money. How much you're looking to raise, because again, you've now set the scene. People might rarely buy into it, they love you and the team. But if you need £100 million and the investor only has 500k, it's good to kind of get that out first. So I would fit this in. But then what you start to then roll into is the anticipated questions. So this is where things that you expect to come up and things that will be in the buyer's mind. in the investor's mind. So this is almost where if you've pre-thought through what they're going to be looking for, things that they might have questions about, is Uber a competitor, whichever, it's always good to kind of, anticipate those to actually show that you've thought it through. Next, as you kind of go through your journey, I would start to go into your technology and the solution, but you've already sold the dream. This is to now go into more of the justification on what it is, how it works, and some of the detail. Next, you would then go into your revenue model. This is one of the most important things that most people miss, and it's how is the business going to make money? This is arguably the most important thing, because you're not going to get investment from someone that just wants to literally just give you money for you to spend on whatever you want, unless there's a clear return on investment. And this again fits really closely with the roadmap of how do you drive revenue, how do you get user experience, how do you get the knowledge, and how do you learn and iterate quickly, that this is all part of the pitch. And then last but not least, that's number 7. Why now? One of the big things which is true with any business is always looking at actually what's the timing, why now? Why not do it 2 years ago? Why not wait another 2 years to do it? And this is where it could be if you launched video conferencing software in 2020, or realistically a few years before that. It was the perfect time as the pandemic hit. The market has changed, and in the course we look at this under both SWOT analysis and PESTEL analysis to really look at how has consumer behavior changed over time. And actually now, for instance, because of COVID, because of Zoom, because of everything else, working from home, people are now much more open to online learning and that kind of thing. That likewise, part of the reason with the Roadmap MBA, we do mix the traditional workbook, textbook stuff with online video learning and then interactive classrooms, is because arguably 2 years ago it wouldn't have been ready, but then likewise now it's a concept that people are used to. And it's just interesting that how whatever your product or service is, being able to articulate why it's the right time. Because the big thing that people are really interested in, I've run out of room, is basically that with most industries you do have so if you have a time and then market size, a lot of industries start slow, and that gestation period could be, I'm just trying to think in say social media, if the internet properly launched in say 1990, but actually Facebook didn't come around to like 2004, and we had 1 or 2, or was it MySpace was like 2002. So you'd almost have 1990, 2002 it started to pick up. It was at 2004, Facebook. And then it did that. And then arguably now, what we're in 2021, what you've kind of got, and the reason why you asked the why now question, is that people are looking to catch and invest in a new product or service, basically here, so there's room to grow. As well, actually, if you are launching into a saturated market, which is basically what this is, if you were to launch a new Facebook equivalent in 2021, you're probably going to struggle. And that's why it's really important to answer the why now question. So that was a few minutes on basically sales pitches, but likewise investor pitches. Within the course, we go into, well, it's 216 pages, all about building the background on your strategy and who you are and what you do and how it works and the dream. But essentially what we do is that this whole thing turns into your business strategy, and it covers everything, arguably about everything, even down to for business owners that eventually want to exit their business. We actually even cover how to maximize your valuation. And we cover the entire journey all the way through to basically maximize your ability to do this. A pitch deck is how you sell the dream. It's that first seed that you want to plant that then can grow over time. So you don't have to do it all at once. There is support to help you if you want to do that, or likewise, if you have an existing business which does what it does, and that will be true in 99% of kind of cases, still consider to really explain, understand the customer, but then explain to them right up front what the pain point is that you solve before you go into your regular stuff. So that's 9:40. It's now Friday, the 2nd of April, so it's bank holiday. So I'm going to take some time off, which is good. Simon, thank you for watching as always. Thank you to anyone that catches up afterwards. Our classroom sessions start on Tuesday. So it's 3 till 4 p.m. UK time, which is Tuesday the 6th of April. It's a different format, it'll look different, it'll feel different. And this is where we actually start to run through the course to give on Tuesday an overview of what it is, how it works, and to start to go through module 1, which is all to do with your aims and goals and that kind of thing. Thanks, Tim. What's interesting actually, Tim's on Facebook. So Facebook is something that I had admittedly neglected, but since launching the Roadmap MBA, as opposed to just the consultancy stuff, consultancy wasn't necessarily relevant to a mass audience because it's a bit niche, but actually the roadmap is. So I really need to up my game, up my content, and actually change that, because Tim is the first person to actually interact with me on the stream from that platform. So Tim, shout out, I appreciate that. But again, this is just part, proves part of the fact that we're all on this kind of learning curve and we're going through this journey. And I'm not perfect, and I probably won't be perfect for a long time, but actually I'm kind of doing my best. I'm sure you are too. Tim's got a brilliant business that's going through a similar kind of process at the moment. And actually, we're all in this journey together, and if you can almost link in with and connect with good people that are there to help, hopefully we'll all kind of do well at the end of it. So my name's Steve. If you've got any questions at all, please feel free to send them in. You can send me stuff 24 hours a day. It's questions@roadmapmba.com. That comes through to me and I answer them in future kind of live Q&As. And then likewise, I'm also quite excited to start to show you my new setup when it comes in as well. So hi, Robert. I appreciate the heads up. What's also interesting, and I appreciate this, is that when you ever start something new, you never know how it's going to work. And like last week when I did it was a case study on a lady called Sarah Blakely, and she launched a company called Spanx, which is, it's worth over $1 billion. She's a billionaire now, but she started from scratch. And for the first 2 years, she was like just selling her ass off and going to department stores. And it's almost when you go into the grind to just work and do the right things that you think are the right things to do, you never actually know if they're going to pay off or not. And one of the things that I've been judging myself on is that if you would have gone back, I've done maybe 10 or so of the live Friday kind of Q&As now. The first one, it was just Simon. And then the second one, it was just Simon. The third one, I think I had 2 people. And today I've had 5, 6 comments. And it just hopefully shows that over time, and again, this for me is a 10-year kind of journey. I'm 8 weeks in. Just to hopefully build it over time. So one day when I'm rich and famous and it's, the ticker's going, that's the dream. But I always love to kind of record it. But likewise, just appreciate people's time and support and stuff as well. Cool. So I will catch up next week. If you've got any questions, drop me a line. And yeah, have a good weekend. All right. Cheers, guys. Bye.